Welcome to the Social Propertypreneur Podcast. And here is your host, social media queen, property investor, and entrepreneur, Laura Muse.
Hello and welcome again to the Property News Show, where every week we discuss the news that affects landlords and property investors in the UK. As always, I'm joined by Mark, the founder of Progressive Group and a professional property investor. And this week we're joined by Laura Muse, who's a property investor and the owner of the I2 Property Group. We've got three stories for you today. The first is the huge withdrawal in money from big UK property funds. These are specifically the ones that are used to invest in large commercial units across the UK and the impact that might or might not have on the market. Secondly, we'll talk about scams within property. Scams that are done on people where people are impersonated or documents are falsified. This is something that's lost the market over 73 million in the last 10 years and how, if possible, we can change the market to prevent that. Lastly, we're talking about crime within rental properties. This story is a man that found a meth lab in his rental property, and we'll be talking to our guests, Mark and Laura, about experiences they've had where crime has been committed in their properties, everything from brothels to cannabis farms. How are you doing, guys? Are you well today?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
Nervous.
Nervous. Well, it's election day for anyone watching this out of time.
I'm just, I'm nervous, and I'm just, 11 o'clock.
Rubbing your hands with anxiousness.
As various constituencies start to report, I'll maybe be a little bit less nervous, but yeah.
Completely off topic, but yeah. Louis behind the camera, He showed us his polling station. He's from Norfolk. It was an actual caravan. Legit was a caravan.
I'm not going to say anything. I could get into a lot of trouble for that.
Anyway, we'll get started. So first of all, will you just tell us where people can find and follow you online? Laura, if you want to start.
Yeah, so Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Laura Muse, official or I2 Property. And then we have a podcast called the Social Propertypreneur.
Thank you very much. And Mark, yourself?
Yeah, so you can find me on progressiveproperty.co.uk or my podcast, which is Mark My Words, or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. All
of them. You're everywhere.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got three stories to go through today. So to kick us off, there's been this story is from The Guardian, I believe, is where we got this one from. There's been a pullout of about 2.8 billion from some big property funds, specifically in regards to high streets and retail units. So obviously you might not think that immediately affects the sector for landlords and for residential, but do you think with the increase in commercial to residential conversions, is that going to have an impact on the market? Laura, what do you think?
I think there's such a demand for commercial to residential properties as there is at the moment. I mean, we've had so many opportunities on the high street, and especially with converting shops, obviously regenerating them in the property above space, turning that into serviced accommodation units, and that is a really hot strategy that people use, and it's really, there's so many benefits to doing that, and it's a really high cash flowing strategy. So we've been looking at that. The high street is dead. We need to do something to revive it. Obviously, this is not the best news, but I do feel there's massive opportunity for us as property investors to acquire more. So
when you've done yours, have you kept retail units in at the bottom? You found, so obviously the high street isn't models, but you still be able to find people that want to rent those.
We've got a couple ourselves, so we actually built some. So I built 2 commercial with residential above. There's there's a vaping shop and a carpet shop, them types of things, beauty salons, barbers, accountants, them types of industries still need space. Obviously the retail, with online, that's obviously an issue.
Yeah.
But I think the small independents, they still need somewhere to go, so why not make it as cost effective as possible for them to do that?
And it still maintains a high street, even though you're adding housing. Mark, you've done similar things as well, haven't you, with some of the properties in the centre of Peterborough?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this specifically because this is relating to property investment funds, which are generally accessed through, smallish investors. These are institutional funds. They invest in usually always commercial property. So they're very illiquid. And at any time I remember last time when there was a recession, and with the Brexit vote, this 2016, and then obviously since, with all this doom and gloom, what happens is lots of investors who are invested in these funds, often through IFAs or maybe through online supermarkets like Hargreaves Lansdown or, Interactive Investor or whatever, they press the sell button. Now they're doing that right across the market with equities, with bonds, and in the property funds. But the thing is, with the equities and the other asset classes, they're a lot more liquid, so they can find the money a lot quicker. When you sell, especially if it's a unit trust, when you sell units in one of these funds, then the fund has to go away and start selling the commercial buildings within that fund to meet the redemptions, to raise cash to pay people back. And that is why these have been gated. So it's not a new thing. This happens every time there's a bit of a market downturn. And we've seen it a lot the last few years. If you don't invest in a unit trust, but it's more of an investment fund, generally speaking, you don't have these same liquidity issues, so they don't get gated. But I'm not that I much prefer direct investment in property because you can control it and decide when it's going to be sold and decide what investments are going to be made rather than these funds. And this is one of the drawbacks of them. They're very illiquid, and to me the whole point of going into a fund is that it's liquid. If I want something illiquid, I'll go and buy property or maybe some other asset classes. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, to be expected really.
Okay. And do you think it's going to have any meaningful impact, or do you just think it's something that happens as the market changes and it will bounce back in a different way?
It's just the same old thing. It happens every time. Every time there's negative sentiment, the stock market goes down quite a bit, or you saw it in the run up, should I say, over the summer and last year as well. We were absolutely pounded by the media as to what was going to happen. When we were coming out of the EU with no deal, supposedly, then it didn't happen, and confidence evaporated. You see the Purchasing Managers Index, GDP, all of that sort of stuff suffered to some extent, although we didn't go into a recession. So lots of investors, small investors, got scared, pressed the sold button on their, online platform, and clearly now those fund managers have got to sell buildings to meet the redemptions.
Do you think, if this continues to, happen, and as Laura says, the high street is changing, do you think these funds are going to stop investing in commercial and we'll look to something else?
No.
Or do you think it's just going to carry on as it
always
has?
No, they can't. The odd fund will have some residential, but it's far too granular unless you're buying blocks. Like build to rent might work because they can sort of allocate or put, 15, 20, 30 million to work in one lump. You're not going to see these funds going and buying 150 grand properties, because in order for one of these funds to work, they've got to be hundreds of millions. And here, we're talking about billions in a fund. You have to buy huge amounts of properties, small ones, manage them, and then there's all the transactions that go with it. So these guys will continue to run these commercial property funds. They're probably coming away from retail in some way, a lot of them, but then you'll probably find some distressed ones that are going back in. So I think more of them are focusing on warehousing, storage, distribution. Clearly the online thing, that's still the flavour of the month, because online businesses go into warehouses and then they need to deliver their goods out. But I suspect that those properties are fully valued, not necessarily something I'd want to go into. It seems I prefer the counter-cyclical stuff. So there's all that, and then obviously there's the offices. I think the offices, it's turned. If they want to continue to rent the offices out to commercial tenants, I think there's good demand, especially around the M25. So I think a lot of the funds would stay in those and potentially buy some. But in terms of converting them into residential, I don't think that's what these funds do.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. So our second story is about scams within the property market. So, this refers to a long list of scams, all the way from impersonating other people to fraudulent documents. And it costs, the victims of this a lot of money, and can cost the industry a lot of money. To both of you, have you ever been a victim of this in any way? And do you think this is a significant problem within the property industry? We've talked before on previous episodes about how the process for buying and selling houses is still quite archaic. And is this, these scams a cost of that, and can that change? What do you think, Laura? Have you ever been involved in a scam like this, or known anyone that has?
I haven't, and I haven't actually known anyone who has.
No.
But coming from a due diligence point of view, i.e. being in property, we obviously work with investors.
Yeah.
I think there's so many things that people don't do. Just completely going off a little bit off topic here. So we've just had a property going through conveyancing. We put our trust into our solicitor, and it turns out they've not even registered the title deeds properly. There's loads of other things, so now that stops us from getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
Now we've done all our due diligence on that solicitor, but
because you know what you're doing, you're educated, you're informed.
But unfortunately, she hadn't done her job right, and I don't know anyone who's been hit with this, and the people who have, I really do feel for them. I don't know how you would stop it. I'm sure Mark's got a bit more of a...
I've never been subject to this. I've never had a sort of scammer try and take a property off me or anything like that. And I don't know anyone who has, but I've heard a lot of stories secondhand from people I don't know. And a common one would be where there's no mortgage on a property, they apply to land registry to sell, or should I say they get an estate agent around and they sell a property, perhaps with some fake ID. And often it's for people that are away. There's a non-resident owner. So the land registry writes to the subject property that's going to be sold. Clearly the scammer's got access to that, or post, or is picking the post up. There's no mortgage there's no lender. So there's not much else for them to go to. Now that went on for quite a while, and scammers were stealing properties like that. I think the land registry wised up. They're better with their ID now, and I think they've reduced that quite a lot. A typical one is solicitors. They get scammed still quite a lot because it's quite. There's a lot of them, and they whilst the SRA says that they should have common sort of procedures, they don't. You'd have scammers getting onto, individuals that are selling their property and impersonating the solicitor and saying, people that are buying their property, they'll impersonate the solicitor and say, these are our account details, send us the deposit.
Right.
And of course, solicitors, they send a lot of stuff out now which says you need to ring us up to get the account details. I think some solicitors have been scammed when they're trying to send the money to another solicitor because they've accepted some fraudulent email or something like that, or somebody ringing up who sounds credible and giving them different account details. I know this article is more about sort of impersonation with the mortgage lender. So they'd impersonate the current owners, asking for deeds to be transferred to someone that they claim is a relative. So maybe they may be impersonating an executor of a will, and therefore getting a lender to release the charge so that the property can be sold or transferred. And clearly using fake ID and all that sort of thing.
It seems kind of insane that this can even happen. We have this system, and exchanging hands some of the most valuable things in our society, homes and properties.
That's why they target it.
Laura, do you think the way homes and properties are bought and sold needs changing, needs reforming?
100%.
What do you think needs changing? What would you change?
It's just such a slow, conveyancing is just such a slow, painful process.
Old-fashioned.
So old-fashioned, and it's just, there's so many other things we can do to make things quicker. Everything's so liquid these days. Social media, the internet. Why can't this industry keep up with what's happening and evolving? And it probably would make it a safer environment. And things would be locked down a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently if they went digital. But they just won't.
That's got to be it, hasn't it? The land registry's there, and clearly it's got a lot of information on it. You just feel like, why don't they get all the information on the land registry? It doesn't have to be public. But then when you buy or sell a property, the information is instantaneously accessible. and it can be downloaded by the other side. I don't really get why.
What do you think's holding it back then? Because there's
someone
clearly,
to come in,
there's
spend
clearly
some money
in
deal with
property.
it.
Like what's holding it back? Just the will from the government or the bodies in charge?
Yeah, and the land registry, the government and the land registry to reform the whole thing and digitise it. I mean, people talk about blockchain and all this sort of thing. Fine, maybe that is a solution, but I think most of it is just getting all the information onto the central register so that when you come to buy or sell something, and then you could force all of the other market participants to report in. So mortgage lenders automatically have to report in, their systems report in on a weekly basis into the land registry. You could have all the management issue, so with a flat, when you buy a flat, it can take 6 months because got to wait for the responses. So all management companies have got to report into the land registry on a, monthly basis, showing what ground rent's been paid, what hasn't, what management, what expected costs and charges are coming. If that all became digital, it's a bit like your car tax or your MOT or your driving licence. A policeman can stand at the side of the road and go, oh, okay, that's what it is, because the DVLA or whatever it's called now, and the sort of VOSA who do the MOTs, the DVLA with the tax and the driving licence, it all reports into this central system. It's taken a while, but they could do it with this.
So it's an absolutely solvable problem. Just no one has had the will to do it.
No one's interested, are they? Or don't seem it.
I mean, here it says, since 2005, they reckon about 73 million has been lost in fraud, and for the sake of digitising a few systems, it seems silly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Although 73 million doesn't sound like a lot.
Maybe not to you.
I wish I had. We're talking about a country with 30 million dwellings and 70 million people. So it has to be seen in the context of that, Tom.
Of course.
Yeah. So, no, it doesn't seem like that much.
In those terms, but...
So, I don't know. Someone in the government's probably looked at all that and said it's not that big an issue.
And gone, it's not worth doing.
The NHS is a bigger problem, or, I don't know, social care, or... I don't know, Trident or something, so they're focusing on that.
Okay. So our final story, we've got a story here about a meth lab being found in a rental property. Obviously, lots, more people than ever are living in rental property. There's a higher desire for rental property, so you're going to have a more likely outcome that this is going to happen. Have you had any experience with this in your own properties? Laura, have you had any experiences, with kind of crime happening in rental properties, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so not a meth lab, I'm pleased to say. We have our own letting agency. Obviously, we're our own properties, we manage other people's. Unfortunately, cannabis farms are really popular. Okay. So we've come across quite a few of them. Normally people pay a year up front in rent. So when I was first started to this, we were a little bit naive and like, let's pay rent and I want a year up front. Yeah. Obviously went down the process and a year later, house absolutely destroyed and then thousands of pounds to put it back together again. So we have a really strict kind of, we never take anyone now who wants to pay a year up front. We go rigorously every 3 months and check the properties. We also have quite an intense onboarding process, so we ask them quite a lot of questions. We do a really in-depth reference now for them. But I have on the flip side seen a lot of properties when I've been out viewing and managed to get them at a higher discount price because they're absolutely ruined inside. So for instance, one a couple of months ago went out, met the agent, completely boarded up was the property. We're looking round, a few odd looking lights around, went upstairs. Now I don't know about anyone else, but I only go to my Christmas twice a year. Wants to get the tree out, wants to put it back in. The hatch was completely just so disgusting. Yeah. Put my head up and it was but it was to the point where all the moisture has completely gone into all the joists. So really destroys property, massive core holes cut out throughout all the entire property. Yeah. So a massive refurb to put that property back to where it needs to be. And not a lot of people
would have looked for that necessarily.
No. Or even so they would have bought something and then ended up with, the internals of the roof rotting away basically. But unfortunately it is really rife. The only thing you can do is really be stringent on your due diligence of people when you take them on board.
What do you think a landlord's, role is if there's, if there's crime happening in a property that you own, what do you think? Let's say as an example, like a drug lab being run, is there any? Do you think there's anything landlords should be doing to mitigate that more, or do you think it's
inspections, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So if you do frequent inspections, then this is a lot less likely to happen. But clearly, tenant referencing before they go in is equally important. So, there's loads of online referencing services that you can use. They'll credit check the person. I don't know, maybe a company. You could also take references from other landlords that they may have had previously. And if they're trying to pay, I've heard this loads of times. If they're trying to pay a load of, just be suspicious, because they want to pay a load of money up front because they probably don't want you in the property.
Yeah, they don't want you to come and check.
No. So yeah, and then obviously if you find one of these, you just got to ring the police. You just tell the police what it is, and often they'll raid. You may let them in, and then I mean we've never had one happen to us after we bought it, but we have bought cannabis farm, houses with cannabis farms in them, but they've been raided. Always been raided already. We found some cannabis actually, big bag and things like that. We found a gun, just things like that. You just ring the police and just give it to them. But I just think it's all about referencing and then inspections, frequent inspections. But the damage. I mean, all the hydroponic lights, they cut all through the ceiling. They put all the electrics. Obviously, they have to hot box or hot wire the meter, so that then the utility company can't see that the electricity consumption's gone right up. So there'll be a load of damage there. Often there's irrigation systems, so there's a load of damage there, and all this foil they seem to put in. It's a complete nightmare. You don't want them anywhere near. And the sort of people that get involved with this are often thugs. Yeah. And I had a friend who he rented a few properties to one a little while ago, and he obviously started realising what was going on, got the police involved, and then he had these thugs in his office, and he got to sort of deal with them as well. So you just don't want to go near them.
So you think proper referencing, checking up front, and trying to avoid it altogether from the beginning?
I think another thing as well is, I mean, obviously not to know your neighbours that well that they're obviously calling you up, but I think being friendly and so now what we do is we do speak to the neighbours when we've got a new property and we're onboarding people and say, look, if you've got any issues or concerns, please get in contact with us. Yeah. Because I think, we don't want massive disturbance in that street, but people are nosy. Yeah, they are really nosy. So if there's anything like that going on toward, then they do.
Probably see it through the window. I mean, they keep the curtains up, but smells and.
So you say about doing regular inspections. Yeah. What would just be some
heat,
basic? How often would you do inspections? And are there any signs you would say to look out for if people were worried about this in properties?
Well, we do them every 3 months, but if you're suspicious, you just go and do it a lot more, wouldn't you? And you go and sort of peer through the curtains, and if it's sort of if there's access.
Can we pay in cash?
Just don't accept it, and get the neighbours on the go. But often the police will put helicopters over to look at heat.
Yeah, because the roofs, aren't they? Quite
if you want to be really anal about it, you could go and get yourself a little license for a drone and put a thermal imaging camera on and just go over all your properties, and the one that lights up like a Christmas tree because of all the heat that it's emitting. Yeah. You know what's going on.
There's been quite a lot of talk as well about crime in service accommodations. Yeah. People using Airbnbs to run brothels, drug labs, that kind of thing. What do you think about? First of all, have you ever had an experience with that? And second of all, what do you think needs to be done to solve that problem? Because at the minute, it's a very open. You can hire a place and you can very quickly do these things, and there's all sorts of stories about it. But have you ever had an experience with that?
So we had one service accommodation unit. It was only one bed. It wasn't my forte in life, let's just put it that way. I didn't have a brothel, but I did have a cocaine party.
Oh, wow.
A massive one actually. It was all advertised on Facebook.
Really?
So, yeah. But the thing for me is we installed ring cameras, but like not just so you can get facial recognition. You can obviously, it's censored, so you can see how many people are going into the building. We also had it in the courtyard as well, so you can actually speak over some of the ring cameras now. So we had that, we installed that. When we're obviously checking, a lot of these people who are going to be untoward, I mean, not everyone asks for passports and ID and everything, whereas that's something you've got to, and the bank card, front and back of the bank card, just to make, because obviously I know people who, they've had people staying in there for weeks on end, not saying brothels, but as in work, and then it's a fake card, like they're not being able to take payment, or it's someone else's card, or they've claimed the money back, they've said they've not stayed there. So I think having this, unfortunately we're living in this world where you've got cameras in stock, and it's more for your benefit than that person.
And is that all like above board? Are you allowed to do that with a property? You won't have the like video everyone as they come in and stuff like that?
Well, it's a ring doorbell at the end of the day. It's not like you've got a complete...
No, it's not inside the property.
No. It's external. It's not internal. Sorry. So it's all...
We've had a lady of the night frequent one of our serviced accommodation units. She kept going in, and the team that managed them obviously started to pick up on it, and I think they thought it was funny at first, and I sort of said I don't think it was. I don't want excess damage, especially in the master bedroom. They just had a word with her and said, we think you're doing this, and she just disappeared. So I think that's the worst we've had. Obviously the odd party. Drugs, not really, no. We've had those HMOs at lower end HMOs, if you let sort of benefit in, and ones out of prison, that sort of stuff. Drug dealing, and actually, no, they did turn one into a brothel, HMO, and it was all down to managing agent. He wasn't inspecting properly, and the police raided. And the next door, a guy that was managing a HMO next door came to me and just said, look, your managing agent's lying to you. This is what's happening. If you look outside, I was around there, there's a bloke turning up every half an hour. They've got a proper operation running out there. And my mum went in there and there was 120 needles in there.
Wow.
So we sacked that managing agent, and of course then you have to refurbish all the properties.
Costs, downtime as well.
It's a complete game.
But you'd say, focus on making sure you're doing your due diligence, checking your people, getting everything before they come in, and not exposing yourself to it in the first place is the best kind of solution, you'd say.
I mean, some of them are really clever, don't get me wrong, but if you're just doing all the things that we've mentioned now, then you're going to weed out.
And mitigate it as much as possible.
And interview them, get them in the office. It's often pretty obvious whether they're a tenant or some big-time drug dealer that, he's doing it for business. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
They'll be asking certain questions, and he's not going to be interested in the local shops, is he, or where the bus stop is? And,
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. You guys got any more to say on this, or are you happy with what we talked about so far?
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, cool. That's us done for today. So once again, if you don't mind just sharing where people can find and follow you, Laura.
Yeah, so on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, we also have our website, www.isquareproperty.co.uk, and then we have our podcast, which is the Social Propertypreneur.
Thank you. And Mark?
progressiveproperty.co.uk. I've got my podcast, which is Mark My Words. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Cool. Thanks for watching the Property News Show. As always, the links to all these stories are going to be in the description below. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single one of these. We love to hear your comments, so remember to leave them below and we get back to every one of them if we can. Look forward to seeing you next time.